These are the sort of 10 keys to success. I might circle back to these at the end of the day. And it's broad stroke stuff, but it's all going to interconnect with what we talk about today. Number one, when I've consulted for probably over 100 market gardeners now across the US, mostly the US, some in Canada, some in New Zealand and Australia. But for the most part, the first thing I say to people is, you didn't do enough market research. You're coming to me with all these problems, and we could immediately figure out those problems if we just analyze the market better. And so I think a lot of people in permaculture and sort of green economy space, they get sort of a knee-jerk reaction to this because it's a thing that's really rooted in capitalism and economics, and they go, I just don't like that. I just want to focus on growing. But the reality is, if you don't do it, you're never really going to understand your ecosystem. And that's how I kind of try to justify it, because I'm similar-minded in that way. I really just want to focus on the production and the growing. That really fulfills me. But I just try to think about the marketplace as an ecosystem of human beings and culture and personalities and minds. And when I can sort of objectify it that way, I can think about it in more of a holistic context, which just brings me greater joy. But it's just, do that market research, find out what people want, what they're willing to pay, how much of it they want, who are your customers, what are their age groups. This is standard business stuff, but it really, really makes a huge difference in the success of your farm off the bat. So I put it at number one because before you even start a farm, before you even start growing commercially, you should know and have a pretty good idea of what your market is and how you're going to cater to that market. And it's really about, it's a selfless act in a way. It's really asking, what can I do to service the community opposed to what I want to do? And that really translates to success in business, because it's not about you. It's about them. It's about what you can do for them. Second one, and these aren't all in order of importance, the market research certainly is. Finding mentors is huge. And you're doing that by coming to a workshop like this. You don't need to go and do a master's degree in agriculture. You don't need to do a BA in agriculture. You just need to find who are the successful people around you, and if you can get some of their information and apply it to your context, it can really make a huge difference. And in the online world today, that certainly exists. One thing I could suggest to do it in an online way that's a little bit less or a little bit more impersonal, but is to follow some of the best growers on social media. Instagram's a great platform for it. Follow some of the best market gardens out there. If you're on Instagram, go to my thing and see who I'm following. I don't follow that many people, so just follow the market gardens that I'm following, because I learn a ton still today. I've got a friend in Eugene, Oregon, Jeremy Mueller. He runs a farm called Excelsior Farm. Not a super social guy, real kind of homesteader farmer, him and his wife and their daughter, but amazing innovator as far as market gardening. So Jean-Martin Fortier and I both watch Jeremy to see what he's doing, because he's really pushing the boundaries. And follow some of those people. A great farm in upstate New York is called Neversink Farm. This guy, Connor, what's his name? Connor Cripmore. $350,000 on an acre of land. Like, what? I thought we capped it out, but no, 350 grand on an acre of land. So just follow these people. There's lots out there, and they're doing incredible stuff. It's a huge wild west of innovation right now. Start small and grow incrementally. I can't say that one enough. A lot of people, I kind of said it at the beginning, they want to do everything at once, but just get small successes. One thing that I find, I'll only speak for myself, but I find generally speaking men aren't very good at multitasking, is we want to just do it all at once. And if that's your goal and that's what you try to do, you won't get anywhere. So I find I have to always tell this to men, and I'm often consulting for couples, and usually the wife is really good at balancing these things, but the guy wants to do that too. He wants to multitask, but then it's just like a train wreck. And then the wife is saying, "Yeah, see, I told you so." And I'm saying, you know what? Just okay. Tell the wife, get him to finish this thing. Okay, get him to finish that till that's done. Then don't touch the next thing. And that's I see people, some couples in here, they know what I'm talking about. It's the same thing for my wife and I. It's just get that done, and then don't go to the next thing until that's finished. And if you do that, you will build your operation a lot more stronger from the get-go, because especially in the post-harvest stuff, if that stuff isn't really dialed in, once all the veg starts coming off in the summer and all the weeds start coming on, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're just trying to catch up to fix problems. So have the small successes and grow it incrementally. Lease and rent land. You do not have to own land. Nothing wrong with owning land if you already have it, but it's usually the biggest barrier to entry to small farmers. But most of the farmers I know that do big numbers on land don't own their land. And it immediately removes all the infrastructure costs that you have to do. Because if you're on rural land and you got to put in water, you got to dig a well, you got to put in windbreaks and a variety of different things you have to do on land. If that is your startup, that's a huge barrier to entry. That's going to really slow you down. Sometimes, I encourage people who really think they want to farm and they don't own land. I don't say don't buy land, but don't be afraid to get on a lease or rent some land for a few years, because some people think that everything they do as far as their work is concerned is based in the land, and I would say that it is the opposite. It's actually everything you do on your farm is in your head and what you learn to do with your hands. So don't be afraid of building a bunch of capital and putting a bunch of work into a piece of land that you later have to walk away from, because you gained a ton of skill in that. And you also had a place that you could make some mistakes on, and then when you get your own land, you can do it right. So there's a lot of advantages to not owning land off the bat. And again, don't have to. If you have land, there's nothing wrong with that. But for new growers that don't own land, especially for us in British Columbia where land is ridiculously expensive, it's a big barrier to entry. So don't get too hung up on having to own it. Keep your overhead low. This is one of the biggest things that people, why they succeed is their overhead expenses are low. This is one of the biggest advantages to a market garden when we're talking about small tools, hand tools, small machinery. Keeping your overhead low just means more money for you at the end of the year. So that's really important. Focus on high-value markets and crops. So this is another thing that people always say is, well, Curtis, we can't all just grow microgreens and salad greens and sell to high-end restaurants. It's like, well, no, but not everybody's going to be a farmer, and we can until that market is saturated. And I'm telling you, there is a long time to go until all the high-value markets and all the high-value crops are saturated, like years. I don't even think we'll see it in some of our lifetimes. There's a long way to go. Small-scale ag isn't even on the map of agriculture, right? If you look at where the food comes from, it is industrial ag, like 99.9%. Market gardens and small-scale farmers aren't even on the map. So we've got a long ways to go. We don't have to compete with each other. We just have to compete with the industrial system. And that's why I'm hopeful, is because there's going to be tons of market share for us. We just have to find and identify those niches in those markets. Track and measure everything. We'll talk a little bit about spreadsheets today. I have a whole chapter on my book. I'm probably one of the only farmers that did a chapter on spreadsheets. I attribute it to be one of the number one reasons that I succeeded as a farmer. And they're not easy to do, but I have templates you can download from my website. You can use them, tracking your information, tracking what comes off the field, tracking what goes into the field, tracking how much money you make, using that to set goals, and then using that to speculate on the future really, really can lead you to success faster. Because if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. And so always having that picture of understanding how everything is laid out in your farm, what's coming in, what's coming out, will be a huge, huge way to succeed faster. Appropriate technology, we're going to look at a lot of that stuff, just some of the basic infrastructure that's used on a farm. I highlighted it here because I just find in ag today, people obsess on high-tech stuff. I get an email, probably 1 or 2 emails a day, and probably dozens of comments on my YouTube channel where people are saying, why don't you do hydroponics? Why don't you do aquaponics? Why don't you do this and this and this? And it's like, because it's expensive. It just costs money to start up. If you've got soil to grow in the soil. That's what nature intended. The soil is there for us to grow in. Grow in the soil. Focus on the stuff that is appropriate, not the high-tech stuff which is expensive and requires all kinds of trial and error. This isn't rocket science. Focus on the tasks that pay, circling back to our 80-20 thing. Focus on the things that deliver a measurable return and try to reduce or eliminate the things that don't. And stacking and optionality, when we look at crops and some of the things that I do on my farm as far as specific techniques, you'll see how this one plays out. But basically the idea here is stacking functions. That's a permaculture principle, is always looking for ways to do more tasks than just one when you do one thing. So when I step out of my truck, for example, and I'm at a plot, if I'm going out into the plot, I bring things with me. When I walk and I bring things back with me, I'm always trying to do as much as I can with each movement, right? And there's many different ways we can look at that. Optionality is another one where I always want to set things up to be an option. And when we look at crops, you'll see how most of the crops I grow have multiple ways they can be sold, multiple ways they can be packaged, multiple ways that they can be grown. So it's really about trying to just leveraging your efforts to do the most with the least amount. That's what the stacking and the optionality is.